welcome to another episode of Keeping Kith Field Notes from the Prairie. So, I am once again recording this from the car. I wanted to bring you out to some of my favorite stand of trees here. And but it is once again so windy that I'm scared if I was actually standing out there, all you would hear is wind and you wouldn't be able to hear anything else. So I've got the window to the car open, but I've got the actual microphone inside the car, so it's not just the ocean sounds that you get to hear. Which, I mean, that would be cool too. I think that would definitely be, as I've said before, if you've been listening along, I personally think keeping Kith with wind is a pretty big part of living on the prairie, especially the western prairie. So, but these trees are, they're cottonwood trees, and we call them the hush-hush trees because when my kids were little, this is the section line right next to the little pasture that's right behind our ranch house, which if you're familiar with any of my other work, I have been writing a column for years and years and years now called Little Pasture on the Prairie, and that's what was named after, because when I first moved to the ranch I had my tiny flock of sheep and a milk cow, and they all lived in this little pasture behind our house. So the hush-hush trees are the tallest trees on our property, and they're actually you can see them for miles and miles around. It's pretty cool. And so as I was learning to orient myself to life without street signs and other human-made objects to tell where you were, that was very hard for me, adjusting from being a city kid to a country kid. I wasn't very good at orienting myself without those kind of landmarks. So the hush-hush trees were really handy because, yeah, I could be out in the pasture and I'd be able to see them, the tops of them, even from some of the draws, and even when you get out away from our ranch, out into other parts of the county, you can still see them in a lot of places. So that was kind of how I knew where home was. But that is not how they got the name hush-hush trees. They got the name hush-hush trees because I would walk the kids when they were tiny. I had a double stroller. My kids are 18 months apart, so I had a double stroller, and I would walk pretty much every night if it wasn't like the deepest part of winter. So even when it was kind of cold, I'd bundle them up and put them in the double stroller, and we'd walk at twilight, through the gloaming. We'd walk past these trees as we were walking down the section line, and they, in the summertime when they're full of leaves, they make a really distinctive kind of like hush, hush, hush sound. And again, I could orient myself by the sight of them, but you could also orient yourself by the sound of them. So that was how I fell in love with cottonwood trees, and that's kind of been an ongoing love affair. But maybe I'll say more about that. But some interesting things about cottonwoods, if you don't already know. I learned that I think this might be true of more kinds of trees than just cottonwoods. But with cottonwood trees, you will also often find, if they are in a stand as opposed to a single tree, they will be in a circle. And that is because the first cottonwood that would have been in that spot would have planted and fed her babies in a circle around her. So she would have nurtured the roots, and if you don't know about this, it's actually quite amazing that mother trees can send nutrients through their roots to their babies. So she would have taken good care of the babies that she planted around her, and so that is why they will be in a circle. And when the mother tree, dies of old age or whatever, then the babies will grow up around the circle where she was. So when I found that out, of course, that just made this little circle of cottonwoods even more special. And we have since moved, so we no longer live in the house that's on the ranch. We live in a house that's about 1.5 miles south from this pasture now. But that house also has a circle of cottonwood trees in the front yard, and there are times where I can't even believe my luck to have 2 different circles of cottonwood trees that I've been able to live next to for the past, well, now I guess it's been almost a decade and a half. So I definitely feel, like that makes me pretty happy. And some other things about cottonwoods that are interesting. So if you are watching this instead of just listening, you can maybe see, in fact, maybe I'll try to zoom in a little bit. You can maybe see that there's already some buds on those cottonwoods. Now, it's February 24th. In Western Dakota terms, that's not even close to spring. Like, we're a long way from spring. I don't try to put any kind of plants out in the garden until the first week of June, because it is not abnormal to be getting snow and even like actual sort of blizzard type events well into May. This is not, these buds, like everything else, have to be pretty tough because there's plenty of winter left. But it's still really reassuring to see that the tree, though seemingly dormant, or the trees I should say, though seemingly dormant, are preparing for spring. And that those buds, which are, going to turn into the seeds that then will get planted and turned into the babies, that they are growing and starting to get a little plumper. So other things about cottonwood trees that are interesting. Those buds have really wonderful healing properties, really great for skin care specifically, and healing for your skin. And maybe other things too, but that's where I'm most familiar with it. So there's actually a method. If the wind knocks down some branches, like this time of year or more into the spring, but before these buds leaf out, if you find branches on the ground, you can take those buds and put them in some kind of carrier oil, like olive oil or anything else that you want, and then it turns in, you let that soak for a while. I guess I'd have to look up specific. It's probably, I would say weeks if not months. And then it infuses the oil with this medicinal, with a medicinal oil of its own that they then call the balm of Gilead. And it has a really distinctive odor. So that's one of the gifts of the cottonwood trees. The other thing that is so cool about cottonwoods, again, if you find branches down on the ground, as long as the branches aren't too old, if you break a twig at a growth joint, which looks kind of like a little bump, and if you break the twig there, you will see a star shape that is the pith of the cottonwoods. So basically, the innermost layer of the cottonwood. Oops. My poor dog. Can you hear her? So if you're watching, you can see her, but if you're not watching, you can hear her. She has appeared in Keeping Kith before. She is one of my closest Kith, I guess. Anyway, she's a bulldog cross, so she's got one of those smash faces. So her, the noise she makes to tell me how she's feeling is a kind of snorty, kind of like pig noise. So she is deciding that it is too windy out there for her, so she decided to come in. She's running out. We've got, I also have an English Shepherd, and if you're watching, you may have seen I've got a Great Pyrenees who's our livestock guard dog who just walked past, and they are very tough and resilient dogs, and they don't mind the wind. But Little Bee, that's our bulldog cross, she's not. She's short-haired, so it's a little harder on her when it's actually, we're having unseasonably warm weather again here in February. So I think it's like in the 40s, but 40s is not warm enough when your hair is short, apparently. She has decided. So it's a hard life being a short-haired dog amongst long-haired dogs, because they go out and they're having adventures, and she kind of wants to go with them and then comes to regret it, which I think is what just happened. So anyway, back to our cottonwoods. Yeah, they are super magical trees. I have written quite a bit about them, and in fact I will try to link in the show notes. Sorry, B is standing on my stomach in a very awkward way now. I will try to link in the show notes back to some of the writing I've done about cottonwoods, because they're just a really cool tree that has definitely been a big part of the narrative of my life on the prairie, and certainly some of the, I would say that some of the way in which I was introduced to the idea of Kith, which again, if you've been following along, you already know, but is a kind of neighboring that can cross over from just your human neighbors to your other than human neighbors. So, and I was kind of hoping some birds would come too, just because it is warm. The birds have been moving around a little more than normal. It seems like this type, we do have birds that stay all winter. Not many, but we do. But obviously when it's cold, they don't move around as much. But today it's so warm, I'm sure because of the wind, they are not moving around. But obviously they like the tall trees too. Meanwhile, yesterday was my birthday, and it was one of the best birthdays ever, for absolutely no reason other than that we stayed very close to home. Like, nothing extravagant happened, but it was super relaxing. And I actually slept like really well the night before, which I've not been sleeping well for a while. So that in and of itself was like kind of the best birthday present ever. And I have a theory that what happens on your birthday can give you a little window into the year to come. And I had several birthdays in a row where my kids had the puking flu. And in fact, I haven't done a Keeping Kith episode in 2 weeks, partly because they had influenza and were super sick, and it was kind of going through the whole town. So it was a really rough, like the beginning of February was rough. And it feels like we've sort of just been getting back on track. After that, that was no fun for anyone. So anyway, coming into my birthday with everyone healthy, and that was part of the reason that I hadn't been sleeping, because people were up in the night just feeling miserable. And so to get to sleep, to have everyone well, that just felt like a huge gift. And to have this unseasonably warm weather instead of a snowstorm. So anyway, I would like to think that is setting me up to have a year that's a little bit more easeful than maybe some of the other years. But I guess we'll see. Only time will tell. Meanwhile, I'm going to wrap this up here, but I have one other thing I guess I want to share, and I probably should have led with this because I don't know, because it feels pretty important, and that is that I never make proclamations like I'm gonna get off of social media and stay off, because every time I do, then that doesn't happen. So I sort of give it up, like trying to make a proclamation. But what seems to happen instead is I just go through these times where I just stop going on social media, and I actually took Facebook and Instagram off my phone, and that is just feeling amazing right now. And again, if you know me and you've been following me for a while, you know my deep ambivalence, because I think these tools are so wonderful for connecting us. And they come with real hazards as well, and trying to negotiate that. And to me, it's always felt like it's more important maybe to find balance than to just be like, oh, absolutely no, I'm not doing it at all. And yet in this moment, not doing it at all feels a lot better, which is kind of leading to something else, which is I'm just so tired of billionaires. I'm so tired of that even being a thing that can happen. Nobody needs $1 billion. Nobody needs $1 billion. And so feeding the machinery that just makes these ultra wealthy people wealthier, I just don't want to. And putting things on social media, it is a fantastic way to connect. And I've learned a lot from social media, and it's been a wonderful way to stay connected to people I really care a lot about. And I just don't want to make any more content that just results in the rich people getting even richer. And the corporations just having more power and influence over all of our lives. So that's me being a crazy old hippie, but there you go. Meanwhile, Substack is kind of part of the same machinery, but it's a little less extreme. And still, I don't necessarily want you to be giving them your money. So I really appreciate people that have subscribed. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, I'd say the same thing. Or wherever it is that you're finding this, YouTube, it's pretty much all the same. And so to divorce myself entirely from these systems, I would be really sad to do that. I would be sad not to get to share these field notes with you. However, I really don't feel like any of us should be giving them any more money than we already do, and certainly not any more time than we want to give. So I'm still looking for ways to do things that connect us, work that connects us, that doesn't have to necessarily be extractive from either our pocketbooks or our mental, or I'm not sure what you'd call it. I guess time and energy. So anyway, we'll keep thinking about it. But this summer, there's almost certainly going to be some opportunities. If you feel like you want to come out to Bison, South Dakota, I'm going to tell you right now, June 6th is going to be one of them. We're going to do a Keeping Kith event. It's going to be very informal, very low key. But if you live near here, or you just want to take a road trip, June 6th, we will be gathering. And I think we will probably have some other dates, maybe later in August, for some theater and some, I've been calling it in my head the September table, doing some different things with food, because in September, that's sort of our most abundant time in the garden. And I would love to share meals with whomever was able to make it out this way. So let's just try to keep in touch. And I apologize that I do not come on here as often as I could, but I also am really enjoying being able to live more in my real life and less on the screen life. So I encourage you, as always, to go out, do some kith keeping of your own. Even if it's as simple as stepping outside your front door and seeing who you see. And you can do that in the city, you can do that in the country. Your kith is all around you. They want to meet you, I promise. They're excited to meet you. So I hope you are all well, and until next time, enjoy, enjoy, enjoy.